Great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome one more time to CB's Corner, where we hope to encourage you, we want to inspire you, we hope to spread some positivity in your day. And of course, this being the month of women, International Women's Month, I believe, and we have some very powerful women on our program. We started with my niece, who is a doctor. We went to an attorney, and I had my beautiful, awesome sister last week. And today, I am just so blessed and honored to have with us a heart specialist, none other than Dr. Nicole Cyril Superville. And it's a pleasure to have you, Nicole. Welcome to CB's Corner.
Thanks, and it's a pleasure to be here in terms of what you're doing, in terms of, again, spreading positivity, and also, again, as you said, being International Women's Month. I think it's important that persons like myself are able to participate in platforms like this.
Well, awesome. And so I want to, first of all, before we go, we want to go any further, like for you to just tell the audience who you are, where you came from, and we will take it from there.
So I was born and raised in Dominica, in terms of just making sure I speak to all of the audience, that small Caribbean island, I say the place you should absolutely visit before you die.
Amen to that.
And to Norman Cyril, I don't know, for people who are listening, my father was really well known in Calypso, the NC. And to Patricia Bruni. So my upbringing was in the Caribbean, and I moved to the US when I was 20 years old, given I was taking advantage of an opportunity to go abroad and study at Midwestern State University in Texas. So since I came over for university, I've been here in the US where I did a lot of my training, and currently I'm in Charlotte where I practice as a heart failure and transplant cardiologist with my beautiful family, of course, my husband and now 2 kids as of 9 weeks ago.
Awesome. So that's a nice short version of who you are. And like I said, we are honored to have you on Grace Our Corner. And so, me being from Dominica, I'm very proud of you. And I agree, everybody must have Dominica on their bucket list to visit. You have not visited Dominica, you're missing one of the most pristine, lovely places on earth. All right, so that is it for our contribution to being Dominica's ambassadors, okay? All right, so great. And so what interested you in becoming a cardiologist? Well, first of all, becoming a doctor, and then to specialize in cardiology.
Yeah, I will say, maybe for some people, it comes really naturally, what they want to do in life. I think for me, the path was not always straight. Maybe when I look back in terms of my childhood, maybe there were things that hinted that I was going to be a care provider. I remember I had about 6 kittens and 2 cats when I was growing up, and the mother cat died. I didn't name her or anything, but she died, and I would wake up every morning before I went to school, and I would take out my little syringe and feed all of the kittens before I went to school. And maybe that really spoke to the caretaker in me that I did not even realize at the time. When I came up to do my undergrad studies, I love the sciences, but I had no intention of probably setting my sights on med school. I just remember at the time getting some advice, and I think it was Dr. Randy Glean at the time who said, hey, if you're going to specialize in something, try to get a degree in something where when you're done, you can be marketable, you can find a job, as opposed to just sciences like biology or something like that. So I decided to specialize in medical technology, or it's now called clinical laboratory sciences, which allowed me to do a lot of the science prerequisites for med school. But I got to rotate in the hospital. So your first rotation was phlebotomy, and then you worked in the lab in terms of blood bank, in terms of chemistry, testing patients' blood. Basically, the results you would get when you go to the doctor, we were processing that behind the scenes. When you completed your phlebotomy portion in terms of drawing blood, you were allowed to work as a phlebotomist. And that was much better than a campus job, because at the time, a campus job was paying like $5.15 an hour. And here I could make $12 an hour doing phlebotomy. So I decided to take on phlebotomy. Maybe I wasn't the best person at drawing blood, but I was like, hey, it gives me an opportunity to be in the hospital, make more. And so when I started to go to visit the patients, to get blood drawn, I just realized that I did not want to be behind the scenes in the lab, just running that specimen. I really wanted to connect with patients and be in the forefront. And so on my nighttime shift, I decided to study for the MCATs. And, you know, I hate to say luck. I don't believe in luck. I think I always say I'm blessed.
Amen to that.
I did really well on the MCAT, and then I got into Columbia University in New York. So that was really my path to medicine. Again, maybe not something I aspired to from childhood. I remember I always wanted to be a teacher. And then I did 1 year of teaching at Dominica Grammar School, and I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this. So all of the teachers out there, because it takes a lot to be a teacher. And so, you know, I went to med school, and the rest is as it unfolds in terms of where I am today.
Well, no pun intended, sir, but you definitely seem to have had a heart for people. You had a heart for the animals, which translated into caring. And so absolutely, if you can care for the heart, which is the pump, which is the engine that keeps life, that's an awesome thing. And of course, for the audience, what I hear is your determination. You left Dominica with an intention to get an education. Somebody gave you some advice. You worked, you studied, and that speaks to a lot of us who actually, you know, took that same path. I left to come and study. That's what I'm going to do, and that is what's going to guide me. Of course, many have swayed from what they wanted to do, but the vast majority of people from the Caribbean, especially I know for Dominicans, is that you are focused, and when you're focused and you know what you want to do, you tend to succeed. And so awesome. Columbia is one of the greatest universities up in the Northeast. So you get in there certainly speaks to your, you know, at least your undergrad achievements and stuff like that. What was it like at Columbia?
Wow. So I will say, you know, again, coming from the Caribbean, which is a different setting, I think, again, growing up, the academic aspect is really kind of pounded into you. At least for me, I remember my mother, who was always like, books before boys. You got to take that education. Education comes first. If you want to succeed, that's going to be the path. And so, you know, I studied hard in terms of doing well, in terms of exams and so forth. But when I got to Columbia, you then realize that it goes even beyond the academics. I think that was something that was really inspiring to me. I had colleagues who had done things like philosophy, sociology, people who were very interested in art. Apart from my academics, things that they looked at when I remember I was on my interview there is what had I done in terms of community, having had the opportunity at the time to do things like Habitat for Humanity, and different things where you also showed that it wasn't just academics, but you were of service to others, that you did volunteer work, which as you get older, you realize that that's just as important, as opposed to, just prescribing things or talking to patients. So I think, in terms of my entrance into Colombia, that's one of the things that really I was struck by when I interviewed for medical school. And as I said, as the path has unfolded, those things, as I honestly think, are things that are just as important. Something you mentioned there as well, in terms of, hard work. I've always worked hard. But I was also, I think, very fortunate to meet the right people sometimes at the right time. And that's why, as I say, I don't think it's been luck. I honestly think that I've been blessed in terms of things happening just on time or falling into place. So it's definitely been a journey. And I'm happy that it's turned out that way.
Well, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I had this discussion, similar discussion not too long ago with family members, to say that in our travel, we will encounter difficulties, but some of those difficulties, within those difficulties, we meet people as well. And like you, I don't think it's coincidence. I think it's blessed. God places people in your path that will give you a word, that will do something to you, that will, a cup of water at the right time is so important, and so yes, and that's one of the things that I like, is when somebody reaches out to you and blesses you, I think you turn around and you do the same. We'll probably expert a little bit, but I know along your training, you from New York, you came up to Boston, to Mass General. Tell us about that. My city, the best city on earth.
So Mass General, I mean, as you probably know, it's one of the top hospitals in the country. And again, I was very fortunate to get to do my last year of training there in terms of heart failure and transplant. Certainly a great place in terms of how much you're able to see. I mean, when you think about cutting edge technology, they have their fingertips on just about the pulse in every specialty. So certainly got to see a wide variety in terms of patients you manage with just medicines, patients you manage with heart pumps or transplants. So in terms of training, I think it was absolutely a great place in terms of training. And, exploring outside of Mass General was also wonderful. I mean, Boston is just, I think, one of the best cities. I said if it wasn't for the flurries in April, it certainly would have been one of my choices in terms of where to live. But the training and just my experience in Boston was fantastic in terms of the diversity of patients, in terms of building my knowledge and getting to see a lot, even outside of cardiology, in terms of the other subspecialties and what they have to offer. It was a wonderful experience.
Awesome. Boston is the mecca of education. Amen. And you talk about Mass General having its pulse on cutting edge technology, but you have your hands on the pulse of people's heart. You bring people back that are probably on the brink of death. Tell us about that. You say you're specialized, or you work in the area when people come to you and the heart has failed. You try to manage that based on our conversation. Talk to us about that. Paint a picture for us.
Right. So a heart failure transplant specialist, we manage patients. Again, it's a subspecialty of cardiology, and things are so subspecialized. But we manage patients where the heart is failing to meet the demands of the body in terms of blood flow. So sometimes it's due to the heart function or the pumping function, the heart being weak. Sometimes the heart is unable to relax well and get the blood in that it needs. So that's really a broad overlook of what heart failure is. Now, over the years, there's been a lot of different medications that we can use to help patients, but sometimes medications are not enough. And so we're the ones who think about devices that can be used in terms of managing patients. Sometimes for patients, we have to consider putting in a heart pump, sometimes temporarily while they're in the hospital. There are pumps that they can go home with as well. And some patients may ultimately need a heart transplant. And we work with our cardiothoracic surgeons in terms of managing.
I don't know if you can hear me, but it looks like we are frozen a little bit. Dr. Cyril, you're frozen a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me, but let's try to get back in. So I don't know what happened there. Eddie, are we on? We didn't miss a lot, but let's continue. We're talking about managing people, sending them home with a pump. Some of them are permanent, some of them are temporary. Continue painting the picture for us.
Right, or sometimes patients may need heart transplant. So that's where we come in, and patients' heart can fail for a number of reasons. You know, in terms of whether it's a problem with the electrical circuit of the heart, whether it's a problem with the vessels around the heart, patients who have coronary artery disease and may have stents put in or have had coronary bypass surgery. Sometimes it could be a failure of the valves of the heart. So there are a number of reasons why somebody may develop heart failure. And so I always say, when all else fails, all roads lead to heart failure, regardless of what the cause may be.
All right. And so you mentioned stints. Some people might be saying, what's the stint and what's the shunt? Can you give us the difference between the two, please?
Okay, so a stent is things that are used to, devices, I should say rather, that are used to open up vessels around the heart. There are different types of stents. Sometimes stents can be used to open up vessels in the legs in terms of patients that have peripheral vascular disease. You have coronary stents, meaning stents that we put in the heart or are placed in the heart rather by an interventional cardiologist. And then when we talk about shunts, we really talk about connections within the heart that are not necessarily supposed to be there naturally. So for example, the two upper chambers of the heart, they're usually separated in adults. And sometimes you can have a shunt between those two, where blood is going through the right side to the left or the left side to the right, when that's not supposed to be happening in terms of mixing of blood. So that is what we would refer to as a shunt. And sometimes those need to be closed with different types of devices. So a lot of the, talks of shunts or even stents, again, cardiology is very subspecialized. Those are things that are dealt with by an interventional cardiologist.
Okay, so that's great, and so that's good to know. I work in the dental world, and I know many times, at least early in our early practice, they would say if somebody had a heart murmur, they would be they had to be pre-medicated prior to doing any dental work. They have changed that to some degree, but we know there is a connection between dental hygiene and the heart. Can you speak to that, please?
Oh, definitely. And you're right. I always get those requests in terms of clearance for dental work for some of my patients who need to be on amoxicillin or one of the antibiotics prior to them getting any dental work done. Because you're right, when we brush our teeth, bacteria gets into the bloodstream. Sometimes those bacteria can be very sticky and they get onto the heart valves and may cause infection of the valves itself. So there's definitely been correlation between dental hygiene and dentition and cardiovascular events. I will say in terms of the world of heart failure transplant, any patient that we're considering, for example, for a pump or a transplant, they have to see dental because poor dentition, again, can lead to infection of a heart pump. So sometimes it's more often than not, we have to do dental extractions before the pump is put in. We have to absolutely make sure there's no dental infection, especially after a transplant when patients are going to be on immunosuppression. So it's amazing to think how all of these things are connected, but certainly we work very closely with our dental team.
Well, yeah, so that's good news. If you want to keep your heart, you want to take care of your teeth.
Yeah,
I think I hope my good wife, Dr. Joseph, is listening, so we can probably use that as one of the things we say in our office. You want to keep your heart, brush your teeth. All right.
And it's a good thing you bring that up too, because one of the things I feel, and again, it may be population based, is we see a lot of patients who come in and they have medical insurance, but they don't have dental insurance. And that's one of the things that we always try to encourage patients to do when we see them from the get-go. If you're able to get dental insurance, start taking care of your teeth now, because later down the road, that becomes extremely important in terms of when we're thinking about different options. So dental insurance.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for saying that. I hope the audience, people are listening. So when we stress taking care of your teeth, it's not just your teeth, but the body is interrelated anyway. Everything, your eye hurts, your finger hurts. So, but definitely that direct correlation between the mouth and the heart is important and needs to be taken care of. Another thing, I don't know if that's your area of specialty, but you probably can speak to that. CPR. Should all of us know some idea of CPR, and what is CPR?
I would say it never hurts to have some basic level of training in CPR, which is cardiopulmonary resuscitation, in terms of if somebody has respiratory failure or the lungs, or the heart has stopped for any reason, or we're talking about things that would resuscitate or bring the heart back to life in terms of its pumping function. So I think it's encouraged, especially if you're going to be in a setting where there's a lot of people in terms of a work environment. I think it's important to be able to have some level of training, because as you probably noticed too, you see defibrillators very readily accessible in just about every public space, at workspaces, because you can truly save a life if you're able to administer CPR to someone immediately. And when I was training in terms of general cardiology, it was always said, if an adult goes down, you assume the heart. Unlike a pediatric patient, where a lot of times you think about respiratory, because toddlers, for example, are more prone to choking on something. When it comes to adults, somebody goes down, you think of the heart immediately. You go ahead, you try to get a pulse, you look for chest rise and fall to be in terms of breathing. And then there's a protocol that you go down while you're probably calling 911 in terms of trying to administer breaths, probably to start chest compressions while you're trying to see if you can regain a pulse and a heartbeat in a patient that, or a person that goes down. So I think everybody, if they have the opportunity, should be able to get some level of training, because you can certainly save a life. trying to, when an EMS person comes on the scene, there are things that they're going to go through in terms of looking at the heart rhythm, seeing if it's a shockable rhythm. If you can't shock the rhythm, then they have medications they will administer. I will tell you, at the end of the day, if you're able to get back a pulse, a lot of the times when these patients get to the hospital, they see someone like myself, in terms of maybe drips that they're on to manage the heart and keep it pumping, or some patients end up on temporary heart pumps in terms of supporting the heart after such an event.
Awesome. Great news. I know in part of my training, they were saying you need to know the ABCs, the airways, check the airways, check the breathing and circulation. I want to put out there that this is not a medical program. I am not a doctor. And so if you have any issues and you want to be trained in CPR, you want to probably do that with a specialist, somebody who knows what they're talking about. But really, because we tend to gather in large numbers, at churches, at work, you never know. And just by walking down the road, you might see somebody on the ground and who has fallen, and you might be able to save that life. So it is important for us to have some idea of CPR. We have a couple more minutes. I just wanted to ask you a question in regards to the pandemic that we're facing. What is the prevalence you see on people who have had conditions? And I mean, we hear about people that have underlying situations. They're more prone to dying if they receive that COVID vaccine. Just give us a couple minutes we have. Tell us something about that.
So definitely, like a lot of the other states and a lot of different hospitals, we were significantly impacted by the pandemic in terms of our cardiology patients. Even in terms of our transplant patients, we actually had some patients who were fairly far out from transplant that succumbed to COVID, and patients who were also on heart pumps. I think what we definitely saw was, apart from just COVID also taking lives, there were patients who stayed away from the hospital because they did not want to contract COVID. And so we saw a lot of patients that stayed home and then presented much sicker than they would have if they were they were feeling comfortable coming into the hospital sooner. So there were a lot of different aspects as to the mortality that we experienced among patients in the cardiology realm. There were a number of patients that ended up on temporary support devices in the setting of the pandemic in terms of supporting the heart when they came in with COVID. There was also patients who, because of COVID, came in with things that triggered, where we have things that were triggered, things like heart attacks or blockages in the vessels of the heart, certainly inflammation of the heart, something we call myocarditis, which can oftentimes lead to heart failure. So definitely in terms of COVID, it significantly impacted the patients that we care for. There were a couple of patients who after COVID, believe it or not, ended up with heart transplants. We all felt like for some reason, if you had some type of disease and you got COVID, it's almost like it magnified it to some degree. So patients who were doing okay with heart failure before getting COVID, it destabilized them in a way where a lot of them kind of dropped off a cliff and needed far more advanced care consideration. Certainly things have gotten better in terms of now that our knowledge of COVID has improved in terms of how quickly we act, in terms of the medications that are available to hopefully prevent patients from getting into the hospital or with more severe disease or ending up on a ventilator. All that's thankfully in a better place, but we did see our fair share within the cardiology realm of patients who were impacted, and some unfortunately didn't make it.
Oh, well, man, you are a wealth of knowledge. I am looking at some of the comments and people saying great information, doctor. And so we have just scratched the surface. And so, but we have come to the end of our session. And clearly you are going to well, of course, with your permission, I'm going to ask you to come back at some other point.
Oh,
But what a
certainly,
pleasure
anytime.
it is to have you. You are a delightful person, and you are so knowledgeable. I'm so proud of you. And I'm sure the many Dominicans that are watching are clapping because here's one of ours doing excellently. And may God bless you as you continue to do good work. So one final word for you before we go. Just say hello to the audience.
Yeah, and thank you guys for having me. This was really a delightful program. I will be back anytime, and next time, hopefully, we can even take questions. I'm always happy to share knowledge and spread positivity. So kudos to everybody out there doing their thing, from myself and also my family. My husband's somewhere in the corner taking care of the baby. It takes a village.
Absolutely.
Yep, it was very nice to be on this morning, and I'm happy to be back anytime.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your husband for allowing us to steal you away from him and your lovely children. I want to thank NECTN, New England Christian Television Network, for giving us the opportunity. I want to thank my daughter, Dominique, who works behind the scenes, put my flyers together, and all those who helped to put this program together. I want to thank you so much. I want to say, may the Lord bless you in the city. May the Lord bless you in the field. May the Lord bless you when you rise. And may the Lord bless you when you sit down. When the Lord blesses you, bless somebody else. Until next time, This is yours truly saying, peace.
Peace.
And
Bye.
love. Next time. Bye-bye. Love you.
Bye.
Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Everybody, and welcome to Art and the Word. I'm your paint guide, Nicole Georges Bennett, and I'm very happy that you decided to join us for another day of creating beautiful works of art that bring glory to God. What we do here on the show is we try to encourage you to use your talents and your skills and to develop them so that you can create beautiful works of art or craft that give glory to the Lord who has blessed you with those skills. So today we will be continuing our Daylight Through the Trees painting, and we will also be finishing up our digital art with Dominique class on, I think she's doing the eye, the digital eye. So I hope that you've been enjoying this new segment on Art and the Word. She is new to all of this, so thank you so much for your patience and your support for her as she tries to help me kind of bring this show into the 21st century. So, of course, on Art and the Word, we always like to get started with a word of inspiration based on the Word of God. So, my trusty Psalms book here, and I'm going to be reading from Psalms 68, verse 4. Sing to the Lord, sing praises to his name. Lift up a song to him who rides upon the clouds. His name is the Lord. Be exultant before him. Dear Lord, today I lift up my heart and voice to praise you. You are a great God. I am privileged to be called your child. In the midst of my daily challenges, I consider that fact that I am your child, and I rejoice in it. It's fun to imagine you, as the psalmist says, riding upon the clouds. I know that's a reference to your greatness, your power over all creation. But could I see it in a more literal way? You see, my days aren't always bright and sunny, unlike our painting here today. There are frequent clouds of disappointment and struggle. Yet I find that in these times when I need you most, you ride in to help me. You are the Lord, not only in the sunshine, but also on the cloudy days. And James chapter 1, verse 2 to 4 says, My brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of any kind, consider it nothing but joy, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking in nothing. Thank you so much for listening to our devotional for today. And again, just in case you'd like to read it for yourself, our readings came from Psalm 68, chapter 68 and verse 4, and also from James chapter 1, verses 2 to 4. All right, so we've got a busy program today between finishing up our artwork here and also getting into digital art with Dominique. So let's get started. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be adding some snow to our bushes and also to our trees, and we're also going to add some trunks to our trees. And then we will also draw in the shadows. And then finally, I'm hoping we can complete that today, will be our sunlight through the trees. If the painting is too wet, the sunlight will not work. It will get smeared across with all of the black that we're going to be adding in. So I may leave that for next class and start a new project next class. So let's see how far we get today. Hope you can hear the music, and I hope you're having a good day today. I hope you're having a good week. But even if it hasn't been, the best week for you, or there've been a lot of challenges or obstacles, I'm hopeful that when you come to this show and you're listening to the word, that it speaks to your heart and it really helps to bring about that peace that passes all understanding. And, just looking at the process of what I'm doing here, I hope it's relaxing to your mind and to your spirit. So we're going to get started, as I said, with adding some snow to our tops here. I'm actually going to use my fan brush, if I can find it. Here we go. Yeah. So I'm going to use my fan brush, and I'm going to, I think I'll use a little bit of turquoise and white, just for, a little added vavoom. So we want something slightly darker than that. There we go. Whatever you do, try not to touch the black, because that will affect the color of your shadows here. There we go. So now we've got our shadows. So we're going to start by putting a dab of white and yellow right into center here. You can select anywhere in your trees, but just keep in mind where your shadows are. I'm just going to put that bright color right there. And then I'm going to very gently run my brush like this. The edge of my brush. It should be a much thinner line, but ooh well. There we go. And now you've got your sun rays coming through. And also up. I'm going to go back in as my final touch and just add in that little white spot right there again. So hopefully you can see that. So I'm just paring it back a little bit because I think that's a little too much diffusion right here. Just paring it back. And there we go. I'm just diffusing it a little bit more. But that's essentially your daylight through the trees. So I hope that you enjoyed doing that with me, and I'm sure that when you try it out, it's going to come a lot better. I would recommend perhaps holding your fan brush or using a small brush. If you are using your fan brush, just sort of use the edge of it and draw the lines as versus going straight across like this. So use the edge of your brush and bring those points out that way. If you're using a small brush, you can do the same thing. You just use the tip of your brush and just bring out your points that way as well. And you can try this technique on, just about any sort of sunset or dawn photo where you've got the sun sort of peeking through the trees or rising over the horizon or something like that. So that's it for this portion, the acrylic arts portion of Art and the Word. We're going to move now to part 2 of Digital Art with Dominique, and she'll be showing you how to finish off your eye. So until next time, please do stay tuned for Digital Art with Dominique, and I will see you back right here on Art and the Word. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Stay tuned for Dominique and Digital Art.
Now, since I want to give it a more glossy look, I'm going to make the inner corner and the inner corner of the other side of the eye more dark, so that when we go to the middle part, it will look very, very much glossy. And they're going to make it lighter in the middle. So I'm going to take the eraser and make it a lot more lighter. And then you can see later that we're going to put shine there, so that it looks very, very vibrant. I'm going to move the size down a little bit so I can get some of the corners where it's missing some color. And voila! Now we have the first shade. You can stop here, but since I want my eye to be a little bit more detailed, I'm going to take a darker shade of brown and show that it's getting even darker here for more makeup effect. So I'm going to go down more into the reds and go a little bit deeper in the brown. So now, as you can see, it's a deep brown. Also, if you want to see what the sketch looks like without all the paint on it, you can easily just take this up and see the shape of the almond eye and then just fill in the color. So today I'm going to give this character a more reddish makeup. As you can see, as I lightly apply, I want it darker here, so I press harder on my pen. And then as I get lighter and lighter, the more light I will draw on the picture. So here I'm pressing lightly so that it shows very, very faint reds, moving into the lightest part of the skin. Now that I'm done with that, I put it back on and you can see that it's very much lighter. Now this is the tricky part. You want to click Control on your keyboard and it will show you this little icon and show you what color you are currently on. Now I want to blend in the color with a part of my eye, with the part of the skin I mean. So I'm going to move slightly into the red but still in the brown, so that when I click on it, it's a mixture of both. And as you can see, now it's blending. You want to click Control whenever you want to blend, because it gives you a really, really nice color of both individual colors. So now the skin and the makeup look like it's blended. If I take off the sketch, you can see, very much blended. Now this is a further step. You'll go and take the already blended color and then move slightly more into the skin and get an even more blended color, so that by the time you're finished, it looks like there's really is makeup on the eye and that's very much blended in. I also want to do this with the color that we blended before, and the darkest color, move a little bit forward, and now it is perfectly blended. You put the color block on and voila! Since we're going to be doing details on the inside of the eye, I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to take just a little bit of a gray, as you can see. And I'm going to just make a shadow inside the eye now. Don't worry about this because we'll cover it over with color. I'm also going to add some at the bottom.